Obviously, we are in unprecedented times. What was different fundraising this time than it was last time?
Well, in some sense, it was a little bit easier because normally I'd be on a plane for about 4 or 5 weeks back and forth, but instead I'm coming at you just from exactly here. I didn't have to leave my home in San Francisco, which made it a little easier.
So what about the environment? Obviously, we are in a recession. You've got tens of millions of people who have lost their jobs. You've got a lot of small and medium businesses that have been wiped off the map. I mean, how optimistic were and are investors about putting a lot of money into new funds right now?
Well, for us, we're really focused on being the best at the very earliest possible stage. So our sweet spot is actually team idea demo. And as you can tell, just take a look at the NASDAQ and how tech stocks are working right now. Tech is really the most pure form of yield that exists out there, especially when you're talking about teams of 1 or 2 people, engineers, designers, and product people pushing out that first version, which is really our favorite time to fund them.
So what's different about the kinds of companies you're looking to seed now versus 6 months ago?
Well, what we're seeing in our portfolio is things like Row and TruePill are just helping telemedicine move forward in ways that just didn't really happen before. And now it's sort of existential. The health plans and the providers out there are really struggling with revenue. And telemedicine is a really important pivot for one of the largest industries in one of the largest businesses in the economy.
So given that nobody knows exactly what the future will look like and that we are in this for much longer than we thought we would be, how do you even try to game out what the future does look like and what companies or sectors will be the most disrupted?
Well, I started off my career as a software engineer, and I probably would have worked on software for free. But now what I realize, 20 years into my career, is that software is actually penetrating every part of the economy. And, Uber and Airbnb were really just some of the first, and really the tip of the spear now is actually companies like Instacart that are sort of arming the rebels. You can take a look at the Shopify stock price right now, and you can tell that arming the rebels is actually a very winning thing to be investing in right now and to be working on.
I recently spoke with the CEO of Shopify, Tobias Letka, who said that if Amazon is building an empire, we are arming the rebels. In fact, he used those very words. You founded the firm with Alexis Ohanian, who's the co-founder of Reddit. He is now moving into a board partner role. What does that mean? Is that a setback?
Well, I've been really happy to call Alexis a friend for a very long time. In fact, he sort of put me in the business when he interviewed me to get into Y Combinator way back in 2008. So one of my favorite things about this business, especially venture this early, is it's about helping people actually fulfill their dreams and their destiny in a lot of ways. And so this is the best way for the two of us to honor our friendship to each other. And so I'm really excited about what he's going to fund, and I hope to fund it alongside with him in the future.
Alexis recently left the board of Reddit and asked that they replace him with a Black director, which they have done, bringing in the head of YC, Michael Siebel. What are you doing to make sure that you are funding people of color, especially at a time when the urgency is so high and the numbers are still so depressing in terms of the Black entrepreneurs who are actually getting funding in this business and getting a chance to start the next unicorn?
That's a great question and a very important one. I mean, for me, I grew up the children of immigrants who came here with nothing. And it's actually incredible the power of tech to bring people up. Tech gave me absolutely everything, and I was put on this earth to actually help more people fulfill that. And so I think that that's a very important thing. For us, we've actually reached 7% of the founders in our last most recent core fund are Black, 9% are Latina or Latino. And we're one of the few venture capital firms that actually release those numbers. And that number is 3x higher than what it was in previous funds. So I know that we're coming from a place where we weren't doing enough. Our whole industry isn't doing enough. And I don't think that we're even scratching the surface of where we need to be right now. But I think it's a really important thing for all of us to get better at. And that remains a priority for us, because what that means is there are people who should be getting funded that clearly aren't due to, sort of the system as it is.
So let's talk about going forward, given that we don't know how long we're going to be in this, new normal. We don't know what normal looks like after we come out of this. When we went into the pandemic, so many VCs were telling us that they were telling their companies to cut deep and cut fast, cut more than you think you need to cut. But now that this is going on longer, are you seeing more death by 1,000 cuts happening? Are you seeing companies to have to revisit their initial plans and say, look, we're going to have to be more conservative than we thought we had to be?
Well, it's two things, really. As a company, if you have a chance to actually come out of it and you can last that long and show a few quarters of growth post-COVID, well, that's actually probably still a winning strategy. But if you can't last, then the flip side is true. Actually, you should do whatever you can to get growth right now because we can't make it last. And I think that you're seeing across the portfolio and across many different venture portfolios, you're seeing an increase in inside rounds. And that's actually how it should be. When founders have to pick venture capitalists, they should actually ask very directly, hey, how much reserve are you going to hold for me if I don't make it? If I don't make the next round, are you going to support me? And will you have reserves for me? And I think founders right now who are going to make it, they asked those questions, or we're lucky enough to have founders who had those reserves, to have venture capitalists who had those reserves.